welcome to this discussion and talk about the sustainable built society and probably a new housing fair coming up. We will guide you through a dialogue where we will present various aspects of those aspects of new blocks or new suburbs in the region of Kronoberg in the south of Sweden. My name is Magnus Falk and I'm a project leader at the Research Institute in Sweden and Smart Housing. I will guide you today, and the first introduction is a case where we will talk about what is this smart housing. It's an innovation cluster who was started in 2013, and the core financial parts are the three regions in the south of Sweden, the regions of Kronoberg, Jönköping and Kalmar, and the Swedish Authority for Innovation and their agency. We target mostly on construction in wood and glass and have the core focus in the south of Sweden, but are active all over Sweden and also with international contacts. A short background. In Sweden there have been about 22 various housing fairs the last 100 years. They have been of very different kind, of course, but they have targeting finished buildings and the building itself just before people have moved into those blocks and houses. We also have in our neighboring country, Finland, a situation where they have been having 50 housing fairs the last 50 years, annual fair. And in the year of 2020, the European Union launched a new initiative called New European Bauhaus, which targets mainly on the perspectives of beautiful, together, and sustainable. And with that background, we will have three short introductions of a little bit various aspects connecting to this background that I just mentioned. The first speaker is Mikael Ludvigsson. He's a researcher at Research Institute of Sweden and Smart Housing. He's a researcher within glass and wood constructions, and he was one of the co-founders of Smart Housing in the year of 2013. Mikael, please introduce the subject.
Thanks, Magnus. Yeah, biodiversity and natural resources, global warming, that are the largest challenges humanity has faced so far. These are challenges that the one country cannot solve alone, or one region, or one municipality, or one organization. We have to work together, and we have to work across different disciplines to achieve these solutions. And we do that by doing co-creative processes and projects within the smart housing cluster. During the years since the start, we have moved from through different strategies, and at present we have two directions, we call it. It's habitats and it's technology. And in habitats, that's where we live as humans, and technology, that is industrialization, prefabricated housing, and so on and so on. And working with these directions, we have moved into also in dissecting and looking at the urban and rural development, how that connects to our directions, habitats and technology. And doing that, we saw that these fairs you made examples of, that is a perfect way of establishing the future for smart housing. And not only by doing one fair, but developing a whole series of fairs, machinery, a methodology of fairs. And that is what we are doing right now. So, yeah, welcome to join us.
Thank you, Mikael, for that introduction and your inspiration so far. We will hear more from you later on. I'd like to lean towards you, Christel Gustafsson, who is the Regional Development Director in the region of Kronoberg. And you have been more or less developing and holding the process of an upcoming fair in the region of Kronoberg the coming years. Could you please tell us more about the region and this process?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the introduction. I would like to start to continue where you started here, Mikael. This large challenges that we stand before is very much connected to how we live, how we build our societies and live our everyday life. And this is also the starting point for the Rural Community Fair. But before I come back to that, I will also like to just give a glimpse about Kronoberg. It's a small region, sparsely populated in the south of Sweden. It's a region which has very good economical figures. We've had the highest economic growth rate of all regions in Sweden for the last years. We also have most jobs per inhabitants, and still local companies, they are demanding even more labor force to expand their businesses. And of course, you could see this as a bit of less resident attraction. And we need to speed up new buildings, new way of developing our society. And it's here also where the fair comes in. And actually, the last 3 years now, we've been working together very wide and broad with many stakeholders, from academia to local municipalities, from politics and so on, to scope in what can we do. Because this is really a collaboration project. It's also a way to speed up processes that we have to do to get this transition to a sustainable way of living. So it has to dock into already existing plans, and that's why this collaboration part is so important. In the fair, we want to move from the buildings to the life that we want to live, and not only look at the blocks and the buildings, they are important, but maybe more of how we should live our life sustainable in the future. We call it Bymässa 2030, Village Fair 2030, and 2030 is connected to Agenda for Sustainable Development. So that is a prerequisite for the whole fair. It has to be sustainable. And not only ecological, but also social, which I think we sometimes missed when doing everything really smart, energetic for the energy and so on. It also has to be social sustainable. Our part then as a regional actor is to create this arena for these different projects. Also to take this below perspective with the inhabitants, with people, so that they can express their needs, so that we find solutions of existing needs that is actual and is the challenges that we want to meet. I think I will stop there for now.
That's a good start, and we will hear more from you. And I find it interesting to hear you talking about those challenges, but also the attractivity in the region, and how you and your organization try to meet that situation and the needs. Thank you so far. And now we move over to the next speaker, Fredrik Lindblad, Head of Marketing and Business Development at the municipality of Växjö, the biggest city and municipality in the region. And we have, for those of you who have heard about the city, many of us have seen a lot of interesting buildings and other sustainable efforts that the municipality has been the driving force behind. Please, Fredrik, introduce us how the municipality works with sustainability and so on.
Thank you, and thank you for that introduction as well. First of all, I mean, it's been really interesting to listen to the two of you and feeling that we are together in the same ambition to develop the society. But as you said, Magnus, from a basic point of view, Växjö municipality has had let's say, a base platform of development in the region in a way, and we started very early with sustainability work. Already in the 70s, we started with to clean our lakes and rid it from pesticides. So let's say we can get the golden eagle back or the osprey back as well, which is very important from an aggregated biodiversity perspective. And we continuously worked with sustainability when sustainability in that sense was the greener aspects of it, and looking at new European Bauhaus perspective as well, as you mentioned. We have the togetherness, the sustainability and the beautiful. And part of that is interlinking the environment and the nature with us as residents in the area. And we as municipality, long before I was here, obviously, we started that work and tried to realize the importance of having a healthy and diverse forest and green areas very close to residential areas as well. And that process has developed ever since. We have worked with the UN Sustainable Development Goals quite recently, and developed our own sustainability program with 5 main goals and 9 activities to try to interlink more aspects than just the green and biodiversity side. But as you said, Christel, there's so much with integration as well that's important to take with us in this process. So we are continuously working with that and are very active, and we are testing all our programs and activities towards this in order to not misuse or misrepresent our ambitions towards sustainability. We were at one point, and still are, considered as Europe's greenest city, and we still want to perceive ourselves as such. And part of that is going into a little bit what we're talking and what we're seeing behind us today is the buildings. We were very, very early talking and looking at wood building strategies and having a wood building methodology, which is part of our development process. Already in 1995, we erected one of the world's largest wood frame buildings, and we're taking our kind of initiative from that position, where we at 2004 started and formalizing our first ambition, our first strategy, saying like, this is where we want to go. We think that the only way forward with sustainability and sustainable societies is to focus on wood frame buildings and predominantly then multi-family houses. That has then gone through several different revisions. So 2013, 2018, we revised our wood building strategy. And I just want to emphasize as well here that having a strategy in place is probably gives you the greatest likelihood of succeeding, because then you're putting a peg in the ground saying this is where we want to go. As one of those things where that we're going to try everything that's within our control as a wood building solution. Our ambition is to have 50% of all municipality controlled buildings built using wood frame technology, and we are succeeding in that. But our progression has been towards from the wood building strategy to more sustainable strategy, where wood building construction is a necessity. It's a given for us. We're not even considering not having a wood building solution in our sustainability work. So that's the progression that we're seeing.
Interesting. Thank you very much for this historical journey that the city really has done. And we will hear more from you during the upcoming discussions. Thank you so far.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, my first question, they are related to generally of the rural areas, countryside and so forth. Maybe, Christel, a question to you in the start. Why this focus on the rural areas? Why play an important role for the region to target that perspective?
Yeah, well, it's not because urban is not important. It's very interesting, it's very important, but I think we have a lack today of the focus upon rural development. When we talk about rural development, it's often agriculture or forestry or those kind of questions. But as a matter of fact, many people actually live in rural areas today, and we have to have a conversion also there for sustainability. So we have to focus also on how we should live sustainable in rural areas in the future. Yeah, I think that would be the short answer.
Thank you. Michael, your reflections on rural areas and that target?
Yeah, I mean, as an innovation cluster, we can see that the largest cities, from a Swedish point of view at least, they have an ongoing momentum of the driving force when it comes to development of strategies themselves. But on the rural side, it's that there could be a more need and a more larger interest for needing assistance with doing the innovation work and the development of the areas and the region itself, so to say.
Fredrik, your reflection?
I mean, I think you said, Christel, it's not one or the other. It's complements to each other. And I think we are representing in an area where it's sparsely populated, looking at major cities, obviously. So I think looking at development in rural areas is important, looking at how to attract companies and people here as well, because it's about living quality. But that said, I'm not deflecting from the importance of city development as well. But I think it's the diversity and having the possibility to use the best of both worlds and getting synergy in the development and the innovation work as well that can contribute to society development.
Yeah. I would say we don't have we have to have room for maneuver. We can't have only one direction, and that is urbanization. We don't even know if that will be the sustainable way. So also to have a parallel processes ongoing. And I think also in smaller villages outside larger cities, it could be quicker to try new ways, and to have these living labs, test arenas could maybe be easier outside larger cities.
We'll pick up that aspect a little bit later on here, I promise. One other question could be, what are the key drivers for developing towards smarter and more sustainable cities, villages, community in general? Fredrik, you mentioned that in your introduction. What are the key drivers?
I think, in essence, if you look at it from a business perspective, if a company get economies of scale or it makes financial sense for them to invest in doing something, they do that. And then you see an accelerated development within the area. I think as a representative from the public sector as well, we can grease the wheel a little bit, if you may, by incentivizing them or giving a little bit of direction where we want it to go. And that's a part of the society planning as well. And as part of what you said as well, that you can have the living lab and test lab in the rural areas because it gives you more flexibility, and then you can have that flexibility translated into a financial model and a business model. And then it starts to move as well from an industrial perspective.
Interesting. Thank you. Mikael, reflections?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about the business developing and so on, and I think the regions and the municipalities are really important when doing this sort of societal development. And I often think that in Sweden we have around 290 municipalities or something. Say that 20 of them are have a larger city within them. Then there are 270 that does not really have so large city centers and so on, but it's mostly what we would call almost countryside, the whole municipality in a sense, especially in an international view.
We have a different setup or population density is far from many other countries around the globe, that's for sure, and that has been mentioned, and that's an important part of how we relate to cities, big cities, small villages, and so on. The next reflection or question could be, what role do a new housing fair strategy, a plan, have for attractiveness and growth in this rural area in Sweden in general, and especially in the region of Kronoberg? What's your thoughts and comments, Christel?
Well, I think it's a necessity. Those challenges that Mikael started with, I mean, we have to face them. We have to do something because it isn't sustainable today, not ecological and not social. We have a lot of challenges that we have to take to handle, and we have to do it with testing new ways because we don't know how we should handle them. It's quite complex, and also they are not alike in different geographies. So we also have to do it at the place where we are working, underground, with a local perspective. So I would say it's a necessity to try to do this. And also the attractiveness, maybe before you could have this, well, you find a job somewhere and then you find somewhere to live. I think more and more people also have, what kind of life do I want to live, and then what job could I have? We also see this shift in values in some places, and then the attractiveness is really important, not at least in rural areas, because you don't have this with a labor market, you don't have the cultural activities, but at least you maybe could be a very attractive place. So I think they are very interlinked here.
Fredrik, about attractivities in these more rural areas, what's your thoughts?
Linked to the fair, or
general, and connected to the fair partly?
I mean, I think we have so many benefits being here, and we are close to nature, and we have great possibilities for people to start families or raise families, or bring them back from the bigger cities and still do the work they want to do. And I think that's a great benefit. And looking at the fair, besides the innovation perspective and the flexibility that gives, I think having the opportunity to offer possibilities a little bit outside the city, because as you say, a lot of the areas in our region is considered a rural area in a sense, which doesn't exclude it from something else. So I think that's important to have that balance. It's not one or the other, and as a work package for industry development, it's important to have that for our region as a whole.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, what makes a region or a countryside or a city attractive? I mean, I think about innovation, then I think that all innovation is not about technology. It's about changing attitude. It's about way of life. It's about changing the behavior of humanity in a sense. And there I think some of the key players are really organizations like regions and municipalities, because they can show and guide via the regional innovation strategies and so on what is our strategy, so to say. How are we going to be attractive? Because I don't think so many people say technology when they want to name a region like attractive. Not always, at least.
Good. Thank you. Now we move over to the next section, who's targeting much more of the innovation-related aspects and so on. What does the fair mean to the business community, businesses, companies, industries who's active right now? Christel, what's your thoughts and how now we've been working with those aspects?
And I think also many local companies actually are looking for ways to test. There are not that many opportunities. We have quite rigid laws of how you could build, how you could live, or how we should do. And we need these test arenas and living labs. And I hope that many local companies are interested in actually contributing and be a part of this transition that we need to do. So I think it's an opportunity that I hope many want to join.
We're mentioning about business and industry and so forth. I'm a little bit curious of this current situation. How would you like to describe how the industries so far have been working in the region related to academia and with innovation and development in general so far? Fredrik, what's your description right now?
I think if you look at research and innovation from a very general perspective, outside of the scope we're talking now, I think there is a clear disconnect between academia and industries. They're not speaking and talking the same language, really. And I think part of the problem is that we don't have the clear products. Neither the industry or the academia can talk and clearly express what they want, and also clearly express the different time frames we're talking about. A research project, just putting a paper together, could be a couple of years, whereas the next annual report could be 6 months away. So how can you overbridge these gaps and create benefits in both arenas? Because we all know that we need each other. So I think that's the big challenge going forward, to be that kind of interpreter and in a way and support the development.
Interesting, thank you. Michael, what's your point on this? How within Smart Housing you've been working with innovation and development?
I was starting to think about key performance indicators here, having scientific papers or just money. That is also one difference. But I mean, for us, we as Smart Housing, as the innovation cluster, we work in these co-creative processes where we have in all projects we do, they are to be open source, open innovation, and it's about sharing knowledge. And it's also, we always want to have the whole triple helix perspective in every project or process we do. So we have the society, we have the science, and we have the business. So that is our way of attacking this possibility, so to say.
I'd like now to move over to the perspective of this new initiative from the European Union, the new European Bauhaus, and some aspects on that initiative. The first reflection or question is, how is the relation in between smart housing today and this initiative of the new European Bauhaus? Is it a good or bad match and so on? Michael, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a very good match to me. Because we started in 2013, and the cluster was created in co-creative processes in a triple helix perspective in 2012, and lots of work being done there and efforts put in. And from the beginning, we said this that I mentioned before with triple helix perspective, open innovation, and so on. And we also worked then with, we wanted to make things beautiful, nice architecture. We called it design. We had a design strategy. We had this cooperation strategy where we work together, so to say. And we were also so sustainable, so we debated whether we needed to say sustainable in our vision. But of course, we needed back then. But nowadays, we don't always need to put sustainable in it because it's almost a prerequisite nowadays in the general society. But one has to mention it because to make sure it is sustainable. So I would say we are ahead of our competition in Europe. But since we work together, we cannot call it competition. We have to call it colleagues within Europe. So sometimes I describe smart housing as or new European Bauhaus as a smart housing Europe. That is one way of describing it.
You got good self-confidence there. It sounds like a good start for smart housing and this new ambition. I'm moving on and to the other aspect of the industry. Is it ready to take on the challenge in those three aspects: sustainability, beautiful, and together? Do they have that kind of ambition, target? Are they up and running in those three aspects? What do you say about that, Fredrik?
I think going back to you here as well, what you said, I think our region and Sweden as such, I mean, we've been developing within this area for some time, and I think we're quite far ahead, and to the point where we might not talk about it because it's second nature. But I think what New European Bauhaus represents for me is partially the methodology of developing a process that can support the beautiful, sustainable, and togetherness, which are all important, let's say, softer areas, not always translatable to the industry directly. But if you look at it and break it down a little bit, if you are designing and developing new areas on the countryside or in the city, we need to develop the industry equally in a sustainable direction and using a circular market model, a circular economy in their development process. So then we are taking those softer aspects into financial and motivators, drivers for the industry to go ahead, because they see the value these three words give to us as individual members of this society as well, and all the benefits it gives to the nature and everything around it. So I think one drives the other, and then it goes back. So it's a circular process where we all evolve together to incorporate what New European Bauhaus stands for.
Christel, your thoughts on? comments?
Yeah, I'm thinking about here the sustainability has very many levels. Like you have to have this holistic perspective, and then you also have to have the product itself, and the production of the product should be sustainable. And there's different roles for us to take here. And sometimes I think that when you're doing something, you are in a black room and you have the spot on you, and sometimes you have to light up the room to see is the total here sustainable now? How does this fit in everything else? And I think that's a very important role for us as a regional actor to have this holistic perspective to see how all these parts fit together. Because if they don't fit, even though they are very sustainable one at a time, we won't get this social sustainability or ecological sustainability. So I think it's different levels.
Like a perfect match, and to continue, Fredrik, you mentioned about this wood building construction strategies and so on, and my question would be, in what ways do you see it as an advantage?
Our wood building strategies that we've had, and going over to a, let's say, sustainable construction strategy with a wood core, and what we're looking at now is smarter city strategy or smarter society strategy with a wood core, because it's the sustainable building material. That's part of the new Bauhaus, let's say, initial methodology. And the drive forward, and that embraces the sustainability perspective, the beautiful and the togetherness as well, because it's not just the building it now, it's about incorporating art or recreational areas, making sure you have, as I said, the lakes are fit to swim and use during summer, having bridges, making it safe. All of those factors are combined together. And having the integration perspective as part of that.
Good. Christel, any further comments?
Yeah, I think they really fit very well with the challenges that we try to meet with the fair. Together, yeah. If it's not a great collaboration between all these stakeholders, we cannot fit the goals for our fair. Sustainable, yes, that's a prerequisite. It has to be, and it's not like that now. We have a lot of challenges that is not sustainable, so that's also prerequisite. And then beautiful, as I said before, I think it's more important maybe in rural than in the cities, because you have to have this, what is talking for you? What could you have as a selling in argument, or why do you want to live there? Then beauty is very, very important.
Mikael, your reflection on the...
I was about to start talking about that the importance of that the whole area is of importance, not only the buildings, not that it's a nice building, because sometimes when you erect a large building, then the surroundings can be quite drowned below it, so to say, because you are overshadowed by the building almost. But so therefore it's so important to look at the whole area that is being developed or being in focus, so to say. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like now to move on to the final aspect of the beautiful within the new European Bauhaus, and how that could be visible or obvious to the participants or anyone getting in contact with this new type of affair. How's the thoughts and the setup so far? It's not finished, of course, but how's the setup, Christel, would you say, related to the beautiful?
Yeah, I think, well, we start with a lack of thought. Many villages, many places don't have a plan of how it should be to be there, or how we should evolve them. So we actually start quite low in many places. And still we have the knowledge that attractiveness and beautifulness is so important for people living there, and also to attract new people. So I think it's, as I said before, it's a prerequisite for the whole affair that we take the beautiness and architecture and the definition of the whole area in the action. Yeah.
And Fredrik, maybe add on to the basic question of beautiful. The city of Växjö is growing quite fast. New suburb or new blocks are built every time I visit the city here. How do the municipality act to consider beautiness and so on in the new areas?
I think also going back to the terminology beautiful, it's not just about the design of the building. There's so many other factors as well that goes into that concept, and that's the city planning that we try to work with. So obviously that's part of it. We have our city planning strategy and have let's say different areas that should look in certain way based on the general planning that we have. So obviously that's part of our overall strategy.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I mean, and when you talk about these fairs now, and we mentioned the word beautiful, I think it's very important to consider what is beautiful. Yeah, to some people it could be that it's quiet. It's in the woods, it's on a beach, it's anywhere, so to say, and it's very much up to the individual. Hence, what I'm coming to is that in these kind of fairs and projects and processes, the quadruple helix involving the citizen will be very, very important and also interesting, because then it's, so to say, designed to ask the people living in that area, what do you like here? What would you recommend people doing here? Why do you live here? Why do, and so on and so on. So I think it's the perfect quadruple helix perspective here, actually.
I think now we'd like to move on to a subject that we might have been touching many times so far, but more a core target to sustainability and raising some aspects related to sustainability. There's a wide concept and includes several aspects. One have been mentioned, and I promise to return back. It's the social dimension. How would you, Christel, describe how that could be visible in the upcoming fairs?
I would say, since we start with a gap analysis at a place where people could put out their challenges, it could also be the social challenges that they want to meet, maybe safety, maybe that you don't have a place to gather, and this could be a focus of the fair. So it could be a social experiment. But I think also as a prerequisite for the whole fair that we should think in this, what makes a place safe, what makes a place fulfill the needs for everyday life, and in that way we put in the social components from the beginning.
Good. Michael, your thoughts of social dimensions into this setup?
Yeah, I mean, when I started to meet social sustainability, so to say, quite a few years ago, I in the beginning I thought about, yeah, that's roughly it's quality of life somehow. And how do you measure quality of life? That's not as easy as measure, perhaps, as the other ecological and economical sustainability, so to say. And therefore, this is so important to work with thoroughly in these kind of projects and fairs, the social sustainability, because it's about us. Quality of life.
And also to add there that we talk a lot about bymässa in Swedish, which is village fair, and it's not because we are very just like the village, but the village represents sort of the community, that you are someone and that you have a belonging and that you want to be part of development and the society where you live. So this is also how we have from the beginning, when we choose the words, that the social should be very headlight.
Thank you. One other aspect is the ecological sustainability. We've been mentioning it before, and I found one other research saying that Sweden, out of several aspects, is not really that good. We are a little bit in the low section of ecological countries in certain ways related to Sustainable Development Index. And I was thinking whether the ambition is probably within the fair setup so far, but how could we add that and strengthen that, and as I think Mikael mentioned before, change behavior in consumption and so forth to move from that low position in some kind of ranking? Christel, what's the thoughts so far?
Yeah, I think we touched it before, and if you look at measuring the production emissions, they are high, and then we also see that regions that have industries for concrete, like on Gotland, or for electricity, so they have high emission rates. But of course, it is the consumption that is driving the production, and we still don't have good figures on consumption. So I think we have to have that, but we also have to focus on the consumption, because that is something that individuals can change and can react to. And then the other side, we also have to focus on that one, because that is what companies and municipalities and policymakers could react to. And these two has to be combined then. We cannot just look at today the production emissions, because it's not very fair.
It will be interesting to see if this will eventually be a bottom-up process or a top-down process, or possibly a mix of both. But which one will be the stronger force? That is very interesting to me.
I'm like to walk into the conclusions section and give all the three of you a spontaneous reflection. What do you think is very valuable when you get home to work? Fredrik, would you like to start out?
Well, thank you. That was a nice opportunity to be first.
Well, surprise!
As we said, I think the importance of collaboration and understanding each other and having an open discussion is by far the most important thing. And I think we also mentioned as well the importance of putting the prestige out of the window a little bit as well, and looking at going back to the cake. How shall we share and eat it? And I think that's important. And I encourage and I really appreciate these kind of discussions and dialogues, and also the opportunities of sharing it with others, because I think it's what we have. And what we have in the concept of New European Bauhaus, what we have in the concept of the history of Växjö's development, and what we have in Bymässa 2030, or the village fair, it's tremendously important for anybody to listen to.
Thank you. Christel, what's your take after this discussion with various aspects?
Yeah, well, I'm very glad, and I'm also a bit surprised that we are so talked together without having had this discussion before. It seems like we actually have seen the same challenges, that we also want to work with them together, and that is really good. And that's also what we do now with the European Bauhaus initiative. So I'm really looking forward to continuing working.
Thank you. Mikael, what's your key elements from this discussion?
Yeah, I think it's been a very interesting discussion, because, as you say, I mean, we agree. We have to meet at the table discussing, and when we do it, something happens, so to say, and that's what we have to continue doing. And I think also the new European Bauhaus movement has shown how important it is to create these kind of meetings between and across disciplines, so to say. So I think we have a very good setup for these kind of fair machinery, methodologies, and so on in this region and in Sweden in general, I would say. I feel very confident now.
So I would finally like to say thank you very much for your participation. Christel Gustafsson from the region of Kronoberg, Fredrik Lindblad from the municipality of Växjö, and Mikael Ludvigsson from Smart Housing. You have been very grateful to prepare and deliver a lot of inspiration, knowledge and thoughts in this discussion. And by this, we say thank you so much from the studio, and we look forward to meet you in similar discussions live or in the digital arena the upcoming days and weeks. Thank you very much. See you later.